every day, and in those new inquiries, there are allegations which extend further than just Mohammed. So it's evolving. I have no idea where it's going to end.
Mr. Drummond also told us that they have credible evidence that the alleged abuse that happened at Harrods extends beyond Mohammed Al-Fayed himself. He also said that some 420 women have now come forward, many of them employees at Harrods or former employees of Harrods. And Salah Fayed was a key figure at Harrods. He bought the luxury department store alongside his brother Mohammed in 1985. He passed away in 2010, which is also the year that new ownership took over Harrods, and they've long been keen to stress that they are appalled by the allegations that have surrounded Mohammed Al-Fayed. And in a new statement tonight, the new owners of Harrods told us that Harrods supports the bravery of these women in coming forward. These new claims point to the breadth of abuse by Mohammed Fayed and also raise serious allegations against his brother Salah Fayed. We encourage these survivors to come forward and make their claims to the Harrods scheme, where they can apply for compensation as well as support from a counselling perspective and through an independent survivor advocate. They go on, we also hope that they are looking at every appropriate avenue to them in their pursuit of justice, whether that be Harrods, the police or the Fayed family and estate.
Matthew Thompson with the latest there outside Harrods. Matthew, thank you. A man accused of being a major supplier of the boats and engines used by cross-channel people smugglers to bring migrants to the UK has been arrested. The 44-year-old from Turkey was detained in Amsterdam and now faces extradition to Belgium to face human smuggling charges. Sky's communities correspondent Lisa Holland reports.
It's 2 years since police in Germany seized this mammoth stockpile of small boats equipment, dinghies, life jackets and engines, all destined for asylum seekers waiting to cross the Channel illegally. The hunt for the smuggling quartermaster behind the supply chain has now led to the detention of a 44-year-old Turkish man. It followed a joint operation between the UK's National Crime Agency and their counterparts in Holland and Belgium in pursuit of one of their most wanted.
These networks and their business model is an absolute priority for the National Crime Agency. We are devoting more resources than ever before into this crime type. This arrest marks an important milestone in one of the NCO's most significant investigations into organised immigration crime.
The alleged smuggler is accused of shipping the equipment from Turkey and storing it in Osnabrück in northwest Germany. From there, he's accused of moving it to northern France on demand. He was arrested at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam on Wednesday and is now facing extradition to Belgium. More than 30,000 people have crossed the Channel in small boats this year, already higher than the number for all of last year. The Prime Minister's strategy to stop the boats centres on greater cooperation and intelligence sharing across Europe in a similar way to thwarting terrorists.
This is a significant piece of the jigsaw. I'm not pretending it's the silver bullet. There are other steps that are going to be necessary, but this is a very important step.
This arrest is actually years in the making, but will be politically pleasing for the Prime Minister, who just a week ago pinned his authority on taking down smuggling gangs. But it's an industry worth millions to the organisers, and one smuggler told Sky News a few months ago they won't roll over easily whilst demand persists.
The British government says that the smugglers are killing people. But we see ourselves as rescuers and not killers. I can't give up on this job, because that's what I know.
Charities also point to the complex web of criminals involved.
I think there's more than one supplier, and I think there will be other people who are able to supply these boats. It might disrupt the business, for a week or two, but people know that this is a flourishing, unfortunately, business, and there'll be plenty more people to step in.
More accurate analysis of the government's strategy will only come when the boat crossings are seen to fall significantly. Lisa Holland, Sky News.
Well, there was no cake in sight today, but plenty to eat at King Charles as he spent part of his 76th birthday celebrating at a surplus food distribution hub in South London. Now, it works to serve up meals from food that would otherwise have gone to waste. The King's Coronation Food Project has saved 940 tonnes of surplus food, the equivalent of more than 2 million meals. That's according to a report marking the initiative's first anniversary. And that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's papers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by the political correspondent for Politics Joe, that's Ava Santina Evans, and the Telegraph's deputy comment editor, Annabel Denham. And among the stories we'll be discussing this on the front of the FT, the headline, Reeves demands city watchdogs allow greater risk in push to promote growth. We'll be right back.
Migrants risk their lives climbing aboard these trains in search of a dream, the United States.
It's really dangerous. They often get robbed on this train.
They suffer a lot by police, cartels.
What happens to them next, we just don't know. Do you miss your mum?
Yeah.
With Trump coming to the presidency, how much longer will people be accommodated?
The journey you've been through, it's been very difficult at times. Has it been worth it?
See.
This is a journey which goes by one name, the Beast.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls. and big-picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines with the political correspondent of Politics Joe, Ava Santina Evans, and the Telegraph's deputy comment editor, Annabel Denham. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. Welcome. So let's see what is on some of those front pages. Well, the Financial Times leads with a major speech from the Chancellor Rachel Reeves, in which she urged the City of London regulators to show a greater willingness to take risks in order to boost growth. Now, the Eye understands Ms. Reeves intends to change the rules so bankers can start receiving bonuses after 5 years rather than 8. And away from the speech itself, The Express writes that the budget proposals would reportedly leave owners of small shops more than £3,000 a year worse off. The Times reveals that children are among thousands of people being investigated by the police for non-crime hate incidents, including pupils as young as 9. The Guardian looks at official figures which reveal that more than 250 unpaid carers could face trial due to a benefit rules error. The Telegraph says 3 of Britain's biggest police forces were involved in a social media post investigation. The Metro reports that Apple is being sued for £3 billion by a consumer rights group, accusing it of ripping off customers by forcing them to save data on its iCloud service. The Mirror calls for an end to cowboy cosmetic surgery in Britain and asks for a law to make beauty clinics safe. And in the Daily Star, a scientist claims the octopus is the most likely animal to replace humans after we go extinct. And why not? A reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the program, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by Ava Santina Evans and Annabel Denham. Thank you both so much for being with us. So on the front pages, the speech that happened just a few hours ago. So let's start with the FT. This is the Mansion House speech. Rachel Reeves, front page of the Financial Times. Reeves demands city watchdogs allow greater risk and push to promote growth. The whole issue being that post-crisis rules have gone too far since 2008. It's not 2008 anymore. Ava.
Yeah, so this is the long-awaited first ever female Chancellor speech that was given this evening at Mansion House. And this is sort of a reaction to Labour's fear that business leaders have fallen out with the party since the election. I mean, they spent a long time in the lead up to the election, a good couple of years, wooing business leaders. They had even someone, there was one business actually who was on the FTSE 100 who was donating to the party. He's now since, retrieved his donations from the party. So this was sort of an attempt to sort of, bring back that glow that they once had. And so she offered things like, we want to bring back risk to the city and we'd like you to be a bit more adventurous with your spending and a bit more lax with financial rules. We don't know how it's gone down yet, but I have to say, knowing a couple of people in the room, there was certainly some anger amongst the business leaders this evening.
Annabel?
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. Before the general election, Rachel Reeves went on her smoked salmon offensive where Labour were really trying to persuade companies, CEOs that they were indeed the party of business, that they were parking their tanks on that Conservative lawn. And then, of course, we had the budget and a slew of tax rises which were going to be very targeted at businesses, things like the rise in employers' national insurance, not that's just that, but also some changes to regulation and increase in the national minimum wage. And that has really got businesses' backs up and perhaps wondering whether this is more an old Labour government, the sort that we saw in the 1970s, than a new Labour one. And, of course, we haven't had a taste of that in some time after all of the Blair years and the centrism, really, ideology, the centrist ideology that dominated those. So, no, as Ava says, This is Reeves really trying to recapture businesses, trying to persuade the country that this is a government committed to growth. So we will potentially see changes to financial rules that were brought in, many of them in the aftermath of the global financial crisis, that perhaps made companies more risk averse than they needed to be. Maybe there was an overcorrection. She's said that she's going to try and address that. There are also going to be some pensions reforms that were on the cover of some of today's newspapers. But again, you know, a lot of it, the devil will be in the detail. It isn't entirely clear how changing local government pension schemes is going to deliver the growth that Reeves and Starmer have been promising, not least given that money is going to be going towards local infrastructure projects that are quite low yield but low reward at the same time.
Annabelle, you mentioned the pensions fund. Let's look at the Eye front page there. Two bits of detail there. So front page of the Eye, Reeves to give bankers their bonuses early as she unveils major pensions fund revamp. So the bonuses, you know, after 5 instead of 8 years, and of course a lot of talk about pension. But I guess ultimately the question, Eva, is whether you think that she can be credible talking about growth after the budget that obviously didn't go down too well, presumably with a lot of people in the room.
Well, I think the argument from Labour would be that they stuck to their manifesto pledge, which was they weren't going to put the onus onto working people. They gave it to the, they put it onto the people who working people work for. I suppose semantically somewhere that makes sense. But look, this is a very ambitious plan. Essentially what they want to do, they want to group these huge pension funds, they want to make them these mega pensions, and it means that they can invest in huge infrastructure projects, you know, akin to what Canada and Australia are doing. It means that they don't have to invest in small startups that are low yield and potentially low growth. They can actually, you know, start to create possibly millions that would then, you know, create this green revolution that they're chasing after.
Annabelle, you know, they obviously haven't had the best first few months, Labour. Is this part of the reset that we've kind of been hearing so much about?
Certainly Rachel Reeves will be hoping that this resets her agenda, brings the country round to her plans for the next 5 years. I think it's going to take a lot more than one speech to perhaps win back some business owners after that budget, which, as Ava says, Labour talked a very good talk about not penalising working people. They had that tax triple up. You remember they weren't going to raise national insurance, income tax or VAT, but of course they did increase that employers' national insurance, raising an absolutely whopping amount of money, £25 billion every year. And yes, the burden might be felt by businesses, but ultimately businesses don't pay taxes, people do, so it will be passed on to their consumers or their staff who are indeed working people. So there's a slight sort of semantic sleight of hand. But as I say, you know, let's see the devil in the detail of some of these changes to pension schemes. But ultimately, they are going to remain defined benefit schemes, which really exist almost exclusively now in the public sector. In the private sector, decades ago, they were deemed too expensive, and we shifted towards having defined contribution pension schemes. And these will ultimately still be guaranteed by the government. And ultimately, you know, if these investments do fail, it's the taxpayer who will end up footing the bill. So, you know, perhaps it's a step in the right direction, bringing together, merging these 86 council schemes into these mega funds. Perhaps it will cut down administrative costs, but I'm yet to be persuaded.
Interesting angle in your paper, of course, the Daily Telegraph. We can look at the front page there. Britain on way to long-term decline without the EU. This is a warning, I suppose, or a statement by Andrew Bailey, of course, the governor of the Bank of England, effectively saying that growth is going to be slower. Interesting this for Rachel Reeves, Eva, because of course she's been saying she inherited a dreadful economic situation, but this also does highlight that Brexit does play a part in that.
Well, I think that what Labour hadn't banked on was that they were also going to inherit Donald Trump as president, and a Trump that's talking about 10% import taxes on anything.
Ironically, he was elected the first time just a few months after the Brexit vote, so he's always there.
Sure, but I don't think they were banking on that. I mean, you can can see that, you know, just from putting David Lammy as Foreign Secretary. That's not an appointment that you would make if you were expecting there to be a Trump presidency, and you also wouldn't be sending people who work for the Labour Party over to campaign for the Democrats. But, you know, I think that the Governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey, has made possibly the most obvious statement of all time this evening. I think, you know, it's been well pointed out, well documented by various publications, including the OBR, that Brexit has impacted GDP by 4%. He still said this evening, though, that he doesn't want to get political. I don't think this is a political issue. This is a fiscal issue. Quite obviously, we cannot rely on America now to do any kind of deal that by the way, we have been talking about now since about 2015. We are going to have to look towards the EU.
Well, I think Andrew Bailey is at risk of eliciting some opprobrium here, and he's no stranger to that after the Bank of England's various blunders in the direct aftermath of the pandemic. They kept interest rates very low for far too long before finally waking up to the fact that we were going to have a massive inflationary spike. Inflation, of course, went into the double digits after COVID.
But so when he says the government should welcome opportunities to rebuild relations, what do you make of that statement?
I think it's very much in keeping with the Labour government, which has been talking a very good talk on resetting ties with the European Union. Look, I suspect that it wouldn't matter who was in the White House, that Remainers would still be arguing that this is an excuse to have closer ties with the European Union, and Brexiteers would still be saying that this is a reason why Brexit is beneficial, and actually we can find a third way between the European Union and the US, and potentially China in the mix as well. And yes, Donald Trump has threatened these 10% tariffs on imports, but perhaps he might agree to a softer deal with us. Perhaps he might be more likely, though it's still extremely unlikely, to come to some kind of free trade arrangement with the UK that we were never going to have under Joe Biden. So I think it's one of those things that could really be argued both ways. I mean, when it comes to Brexit, what I actually find extraordinary is that it hasn't really made that much of a difference, despite being such a...
We're going to have to leave there, Annabelle. Eva, thank you so much. And coming up, why are police getting involved with disputes between young children in school? We'll discuss that next.
I'm David Blevins, and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent.
It takes 60 minutes to cross the Irish Sea. It took the British monarchy a century.
I've spent 30 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace.
The political parties of Northern Ireland have reached agreement.
If there's anyone who might know how to fix Northern Ireland's devolved government, it's the American architect.
Changes in circumstance require changes in approach.
The end of the political stalemate, the start of a new chapter for Northern Ireland.
I confirmed that I am willing to take up the office of First Minister.
My election to the post of First Minister demonstrates the change that's happening on this island.
Catholics and Protestants on different sides, now facing the same threat.
If we both contract COVID-19 and end up in hospital, religion's nothing.
People here are adept at finding hope amid adversity. That's the spirit of a place that punches way above its weight.
We help you understand the world with us. A toxic blue-green algae now poisoning Lough Neagh. It's breaking your heart what has happened here.
It is.
This is a vital resource, a national treasure, now fighting for its very life. They are effectively surrounded by Northern Ireland, and that makes this the most unlikely of international frontiers.
If there's a hard border, I think it'll cripple the country.
Winter is coming. Welcome to Winterfell. It's an iconic location in this globally acclaimed drama. Ophelia was the most powerful hurricane this far east in the Atlantic on record.
Sky News, the full story first.
All right.
gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live. I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Play Sky News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7.
Now that you're up to date, we can go into a bit more detail.
Things can change incredibly quickly.
Taken by surprise.
Have you ever known a moment like this in British politics before? Yes. Cheers.
We'll start with breaking news.
Let's get the latest on the ground.
So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better.
Day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
You want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
Welcome back. You're watching the press preview with me now, Eva Santina Evans and Annabelle Denham. Let's go straight to the Times front page there. And the headline, police treat classroom jibes as hate incidents. Now, this is and it's this case, but there's others we'll talk about later, of being investigated as non-crime hate incidents. This specifically relating to school. There's one example of two girls who said another pupil smelt like fish. Annabelle, what do you make of this story?
Well, I find it quite troubling because I imagine, my eldest is only 8, but that much of what a 9-year-old or a teenager says could be regarded or perceived as quite offensive. But no, I think, the idea that children are being investigated by the police for accusing somebody of smelling like fish is very sinister. Indeed, there are more than 13,000 hate incidents recorded every year now, absolutely dozens and dozens a day. When Suella Braverman was Home Secretary, she looked at introducing a statutory instrument that would limit the number of incidences where the police were reporting and recording these non-crime hate incidents. But it's reported on the cover of the Times that Yvette Cooper was considering reversing those changes in order that there would be an increase on this already vast number. Of course, this issue of non-crime hate incidents has been given a new significance by the dreadful experience of Alison Pearson.
Let me just pull that up. That's the Telegraph on the front page.
Who, as I'm sure you've reported, on Sunday morning, Remembrance Sunday no less, at 9:30 in the morning, had 2 officers knock on her door and tell her that she had committed some sort of offence, but they couldn't give her any details of what she'd actually done relating to a tweet that she'd posted around a year ago in the aftermath of the October 7th massacre. And they couldn't tell her who her accuser was either. So it was very sort of Kafkaesque experience, and that's been rumbling over the next few days.
It says you're investigated by Essex Police for allegedly stirring up racial hatred, as you say, in a social media post from last year. Eva.
But what's important about that story is that Alison Pearson was not given any detail about the crime that she had, or non-crime as these sort of allegations are called, what she had committed. That's what's absolutely extraordinary about it, because as you've just described it as Kafkaesque, it's rather frightening that you might post something online and then not to be told what you have done wrong. How on earth do you defend yourself or even answer if you're not given any repercussions? And it's also very, explanation, but it's also rather extraordinary because Yvette Cooper actually came to the house a couple of months ago now, maybe a couple of weeks, the time all blurs into one, and she said that this story about classroom jibes was total rubbish because there was a story at the time that children would be handed over to Prevent, which is sort of an anti-terrorism strategy, and she said it was total rubbish. And these Freedom of Information requests that have been revealed by the Times today show that not to be true. So, I mean, it really is, it's a question really now actually for the Home Office. Why on earth are police forces being sent in to deal with 9-year-olds? Surely that's an issue for the parents.
And why are they being sent in to deal with these sorts of things at the same time as shoplifting is being effectively decriminalised, as burglaries are going unreported or uninvestigated? You know, there are a lot of crimes that people would regard as more serious than a Twitter post that seem to be, you know, ignored by constabularies, and this is, you know, disgruntlement,
we're going to have to leave it there. I'm sure
result.
it's something that will be discussed much more often in the future. Annabelle, Eva, thank you both so much. Let's take a quick look at the weather now. And November has been mostly dry so far, if gloomy, but the weekend will bring changes. It will become much more unsettled with a northerly flow bringing in Arctic air. Parts of England, Wales and northeast Scotland will have a chilly start tomorrow with a local frost and some fog. Elsewhere, it will be cloudier and milder. Coming up next on Sky News at 11, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves delivers her first Mansion House speech tonight with a focus on the impact of Brexit.
We arrive, a secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.